Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and today I want to talk about one of the most common things that affects people. Up to 14 to 16% of the population at any given time is dealing with chronic sinusitis, also known as chronic rhinosinusitis. And this impacts breathing, sleep quality, can cause congestion and pain through the sinuses here, which can lead to headaches, and it can be very disruptive to the day-to-day activity of people. So if you're struggling with this, the most important thing we need to talk about is structural problems with the nose, because all the things that follow are not going to be as helpful if we don't rule out potential structural issues. So what do I mean by that? If there's been nose trauma or there's a deviated septum, that needs to be corrected first. So I'm talking broken noses, potentially car accidents where maybe the airbag has hit you, or maybe it's a congenital thing you were born with, but this needs to be seen by an ear, nose, and throat specialist, as well as ruled out from a possible surgical consult side of things, because if structural stuff exists, that needs to be corrected first. Because, it's one of those things that people just live with, and they think, one of my nostrils is often blocked, and that's just the way it is. I thought even through my 20s when I lied down at night, whatever side I lied on would just be blocked, and then when I got up in the morning and it drained, I'm okay, let's continue on. That's showing that something's off, something's not balanced, and you're generating a lot of phlegm and mucus within your nose, and that is in response to something. What happens when your nose is blocked all the time and you can't exchange air through it is you default to mouth breathing, and that impacts your health in many different ways, and none of them are great because we should be breathing through our nose. It affects our jawline, our neck, our facial appearance if you're always mouth breathing. It causes more stress on your system, can drive up blood pressure. So you need to be breathing through your nose because this activates nitric oxide release in the body, which is a vasodilator and relaxer of the system. And if you're always breathing through your mouth, you're not releasing as much nitric oxide as you can. So this is really important stuff. So one of the big things we start with is food sensitivities, because these mucous membranes that make up your nose, throat, and your entire intestinal system all the way through to your rectum, that's all one continuous tube. And these mucous membranes can get fired up for a variety of reasons, and it's usually things you eat, drink, consume, or come in contact with, such as environmental allergies. And what happens to mucous membranes when they get inflamed and irritated is they'll generate and push out more mucus. That's why they're called mucous membranes. But you have to remember these tubes are so small that when more mucus lines it, it shrinks them further. So then the flow of things becomes a lot more difficult. So the big culprits I see, gluten and dairy, especially chronic consumption of them, will drive up excessive phlegm and mucus. This can block the nose, this can make breathing difficult, and it'll inflame the mucous membrane. So you need to diagnose and fix and remove the food sensitivities. Alcohol is another huge one. Chronic drinking, especially beer and wine, heavily linked to congested nose. People will then not be able to sleep properly and breathe properly, and it really impacts how they feel the next day. If you're gonna drink, and by no means are any of these alcoholic beverages a health beverage, but if you're gonna drink, usually you're gonna get less congestion with the triple distilleds, whether it's vodka, gin, tequila, with a splash of soda water and maybe a pinch of lime. That's usually a better option than the real thick, heavily fermented beers and wines. I try to get people to minimize useless drinking and just keep it for those special occasions, birthdays, weddings, anniversaries. I try not to be the no fun doc completely, but obviously we want to breathe well and have a great life and feel awesome. So I have to, call it like I see it. And alcohol seems to be a really big one when it comes to chronic sinus congestion. Also dehydration. I talk about this in just about every video, but your body holds on to what it doesn't have enough of. So if you don't have enough fluids in your system, it holds on to fluids in weird ways, such as phlegm and mucus. So in order to expel that, drain it, support your lymphatic system, you need to stay hydrated as well as regular exercise, because excessive fluid intake as well as proper exercise helps drain areas, especially in the ears, nose, throat, head, and neck area. Okay, so a liter per 50 pounds body weight each day combined with proper exercise will help drain these areas. And then there's a nasal spray I came across, and this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and it is an absolute dead ringer for chronic sinusitis, and it's called XClear. It's a combination of saline and xylitol. Now, saline most people know about because they've maybe tried a neti pot, but it's very cumbersome, very annoying, and just tough to do. It doesn't feel great trying to tip salt water through one nostril and let it drain out the other, and it's too much of a setup. So that's why I like this XClear nasal spray, because it has saline and xylitol. Now, what the heck is xylitol? It's a sugar alcohol. What it does though is it helps break up biofilm in the nose. And for those of you that don't know what biofilm is, the Best example I can give you is plaque on your teeth. That sort of yellowy substance that surrounds teeth. And it's usually bacterial in nature, but it's almost like a shield. So you think of biofilms like a shield where the bacteria or microbes that set up shop in a certain area, whether it's the mouth or digestive tract or the nose in this case, creates a shield which protects them from anything trying to get them out of there. Now, when you have too much of a biofilm in an area, the bugs can just run rampant. And that's where saline won't get it. Saline might help drain the phlegm and mucus, but you're trying to get at the cause for why excessive amounts are there in the first place. So the xylitol will go in and break up the biofilm so that you can actually drain the nose and have a bit more of a permanent fix. And it ends up being just a couple sprays up each nostril a few times a day initially for several weeks. And then people just kind of naturally back off because it starts to get so much better. They're breathing more clear, and they don't find they need as much. So you'll naturally just use a little bit less as you go. You could also have biofilms and microbial buildup in the digestive tract, particularly yeast and bacterial buildup here down in the stomach or intestinal area can then reflect that in the nose as well. So it's not just about treating the nose locally, it's about looking at the gut as well. So sometimes yeast busting cleanse are needed, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth might be present and you need to deal with that. And then the health of your digestive tract and this tube improves, and then that'll reflect up in the nose. So usually you have to do a bit of both. And when you sort of pair all this together, you get wonderful results. Another really good biofilm buster and mucus buster is known as N-acetylcysteine. So for these chronic phlegm and mucus cases, I'll also give oral N-acetylcysteine around 900 to 1,000 milligrams twice a day. Really good at busting up biofilms in the digestive tract, especially when taken away from food, but it's also a mucolytic, which means it literally lyses and breaks up mucus. So when you get people on a little bit of nasal spray, get rid of the food sensitivities, add in a little bit of NAC, their symptoms usually improve quite significantly. The cool thing with NAC is it's a precursor to glutathione, which is an awesome antioxidant. It's immune supportive. It also helps protect your liver. So a wonderful, wonderful remedy, N-acetylcysteine. Some other things to think about too is your living environment with chronic sinusitis. You know, if there's a old building with forced air, or maybe there's mold and you don't know it, that could absolutely be causing this, and that'll lead to tremendous fatigue and other chronic health problems. So you want to make sure that that's not an issue. Get the HVAC cleaned once or twice a year. Make sure the forced air is not pumping, particulate and dust and all kinds of gunk around, because that's going to drive up nasal congestion. Now there is ways to do this. If you just look online and go like at-home mold testing, there's lots of probably providers in your area that can come by. They have certain meters they use and they can check all the rooms to see if that is potentially a problem. There could be mold hiding in the walls and you have no idea, and that is very damaging to your health. So you want to look into potential mold exposure or just mold in general that may be existing in your living area. And then the last piece is just to reiterate that mouth breathing versus nose breathing is not the way to go. This leads to snoring at night, poor sleep, a lot more stress to the system. Your nervous system will be jacked up, high blood pressure, and as I was mentioning, it can actually change the shape and contours of the jaw and neck. So we were meant to breathe through our nose, and it's incredibly important to be able to do that through both nostrils. So if chronic sinusitis has been plaguing you and you haven't gone through this list, or you've just been told that's the way it is, I don't want you to accept that, and know that there's lots that you can do. So if you found this helpful or think this will benefit someone you know, please share it with them. And if you have questions, just drop a comment below. And as always, thank you for watching.